The sun is out again after 4 months of heavy rainfall here in Maharashtra's Satara district, and Santosh Kadam has work to do. Once a migrant worker doing odd jobs in Mumbai and Chiplun, Santosh now oversees afforestation efforts. Finding work here means that he gets to stay home in his village in nature.
मी इथे आल्यापासून आमचा म्हणजे 7 वर्ष झाली. मला इथं चांगला फायदा झाला. आणखी काम पण आम्हाला कंटिन्यू आमच्याकडे 20-25 लोकं कामाला आहेत. आणखी पहिलं 35 एकरमध्ये आम्हाला साहेबांनी इथं काम दिलेलं, ते आम्ही चांगल्या पद्धतीने केलं. नंतर आता 100 एकर मी काम इकडे 100 एकरमध्ये सांभाळतोय. 20-25 लोकं आमच्याकडे कायमचे कामाला असतात.
The land Santosh works on is sandwiched between the Koina and Chandoli wildlife sanctuaries, part of the Sahyadri Tiger Reserve within the Western Ghats. While the wildlife sanctuary remains protected, the land Santosh is working on is not. This plot is amongst the hundreds of acres of privately owned land in the region, either owned by individual villagers or communities. They mostly surround village clusters and have been lying vacant and degraded.
These are mostly non-agricultural lands, so people want to get some kind of returns from these lands, and the traditional practice was to cut the forest on these lands at regular intervals and sell them for firewood or similar, maybe for making charcoal, etc. So initially, for a few cycles, maybe it remains sustainable. But when you cut these trees again and again, then at some point the forest starts becoming degraded and it gets converted to, say, bushy kind of vegetation and eventually to grasslands.
Agriculture is difficult in hilly terrains. Moreover, without protection, overgrazing and cutting down trees for timber have all but destroyed these patches that were once part of dense, uninterrupted forests. Santosh is part of a project that aims to reverse some of these losses. The goal is to use barren and degraded forest land to plant trees and increase green cover, while also providing employment to local communities. At its heart, the idea rests on making conservation profitable for locals, taking off from the principles of social forestry. The model appears to be working.
इथं झाडे लावण्यासाठी पहिले खड्डे काढावे लागतात. खड्डे काढून नंतर मग ते आम्ही झाडं आणतो, झाडे लावतो. आणखी नंतर आता पावसातून खते घालतो. आता गवत कापणी आहे. सर्व कामं कंटिन्यू चालू राहतात. सीझन जसे सीझन असेल त्याचे कामं असतात. पहिली परिस्थिती गरीब होते, जरा थोडीफार सुधारली. या कामामुळे आम्हाला कायमचं काम भेटतं, त्याच्यामुळे सुधारली थोडीफार.
At any given point of time, there are around 150 to 200 people employed on these plantations. This makes the afforestation initiative carried out by Pune-based non-profit Wildlife Research and Conservation Society the largest employer in the region. A remote area where phone networks are often down for days and internet connectivity is found mostly on hilltops alone.
So initially when we started doing plantation, there were some worries among the local people that, when we give the land for plantation, like, are we going to, take ownership of the land or something? But now they have developed confidence in us and they don't have any such worries now. Some of the local grazer community does have apprehensions because they say that, we used to graze our land freely in this, graze our livestock freely in this area. Now you are fencing up the area, so where will our livestock graze? So our answer generally is that there is plenty of land where you can graze their cattle. So it's not like we are covering a huge area. We are just covering small plantation areas at a time, and you should have sufficient land for grazing.
On a regular day, we find workers tending to saplings at a nearby nursery, one of the many set up under the project. The saplings are nurtured here for a few months to a year, after which they are taken to the site for planting. For another 3 years, they remain under the supervision of the team of workers.
Once we do a plantation, it continues to give employment to people in that area for a period of 3 years. And so that is the immediate benefit that the community gets from these plantations. And the kind of trees that we plant are mostly economically useful. They are native tree species which enrich the biodiversity of this region, but they are also economically useful and economically important in the sense that they yield various kinds of forest produce, like fruits, seeds, etc. Bamboo, for example. So the trees will take some time to mature, maybe a period of 20 years. But our vision is that they will start yielding forest produce regularly, and people will get economic returns by sustainable harvesting of the forest produce.
The Koina Chandoli project, as this is called, has so far covered close to 900 acres of land across 16 villages since it started in 2014. Neeta Kadam, Santosh's wife, is also an employee on the project.
मुलांच्या खर्चासाठी तो उपयोगी पडतो पैसा, म्हणजे कामाला जाते तो पैसा. आणखीन घरातलं पण एखादी वस्तू जर नसेल तर घेता येते ना. एखादी इमर्जन्सी गरजेची वस्तू पाहिजे असेल आणि आपल्याकडे पैसा नसेल तर त्यासाठी ते उपयोगी पडला पैसा काम केलेल्यात.
In remote regions like these, where finding long-term employment is difficult, while the men are driven to migrate, it is the women who stay behind. Drive down any mountainous region in the country and you cannot miss the women carrying massive loads of wood on their heads. This is part of their daily grind, chopping wood for cooking and heating, and selling the excess along the highways that lead up to the cities.
भारीमोळीच करते मग. भारीमोळी करायची ती विकणे हाच आमचा उद्योग होता. लाकडं रानातून आणते ती लोक खाली नेतात ना कोयनेमध्ये, असे विकत घ्यायचे. मग तेच आम्ही करत होते. आम्हाला हे झाडाचे काम भेटल्यापासून आम्ही झाडामध्येच आता 4 वर्ष झाली येते.
The same women who once made a living cutting down the forest have now been employed to care for them. Nearly 80% of those employed by the Koina Chandoli project are women.
मी झाडं आम्ही लावतोय, जगवतोय. आता हेतून झाडापासून आम्हाला फळ वगैरे भेटणार खायला वगैरे. पेरू आहे, जांभळ आहे. हे आम्हाला खायला मोठी झाली तर उपयोगी पडणार.
Afforestation efforts worldwide are known to improve tree cover, recharge water tables, and boost biodiversity in a forest ecosystem. Jayant tells us how tree cover has improved in Satara across more than 850 acres over the last decade. They have also noticed an improvement in soil quality, and birds have started returning to the region. But there are other concerns to consider, from an unchecked presence of wildlife to the sustainability of the plantations.
There is always a worry, how these plantations will, survive if we don't continue to look after them. So we are hopeful that the landowners, they will take ownership of it, especially when they start getting economic returns from the plantations.
10 years into the project, Jayant tells us that most of the plants have survived, while more landowners are opening up to the idea of regeneration. Some of the trees have begun to bear fruits, although on a smaller scale. Setting up a model like this, however, doesn't come cheap. The project is currently funded by CSR contributions. But that means if funds run dry, viability of running the project might be under threat. In the nearby Karate village, the Koina Chandoli project helped locals find employment during the 2020 pandemic, when there was even less opportunity for work. The local villagers had first offered their 32-acre community land owned by the Jugai Devi Temple Trust. Soon after, private landowners began to show interest. Currently, 120 acres is undergoing reforestation.
काय करा माहिती आहे का, दाखवू का? त्याच्यावर गोल राऊंड आहे ना, खणून गवत काढून घ्या. काय व्यवस्थित.
As more and more private landowners join the project, the community is now coming up with ways to raise funds themselves.
ट्रॅकिंगसाठी लोकांना निमंत्रित करणे, गावातील काही सुशिक्षित तरुण आहेत त्यांच्याद्वारे आम्ही या ठिकाणी एक वेबसाईट तयार करणार आहे आणि ह्या प्लांटेशनला काहीतरी सगळ्यांच्या प्रत्येक गावातल्या प्रत्येक कुटुंबाला कसा फायदा होईल यासाठी आम्ही कंपाऊंड करून हे एक बंदिस्त जागा करणार आहे आणि यातून मग वैयक्तिक शेतकऱ्यांचे वैयक्तिक त्यांनाही फायदा होईल, त्याबरोबर सार्वजनिक जमिनीतून सार्वजनिक फायदा होईल.
A little over 200 kilometers from where we were, we drive north towards Pune to a village called Loni Kalbor. Here, just outside city limits, Shantanu Goel, a sustainability consultant, is experimenting with the same principles of social forestry. But his focus is different. On his 52-acre family-owned land, Shantanu also employs locals to help plant trees, incentivizing forest conservation. But he is experimenting to see if his project can ensure faster returns.
Currently, it's about I'd say about 6 to 9 months that we started doing work out here. The main idea is to show a forestry model, a production forestry model, and we are using our private land for that. What we are doing is, wherever we used to do agriculture, the flatlands, there we are going in for growing napier, which is going to go either for fodder or for biofuel industry. And then the other part of the thing is, wherever we have sloping lands, we will be doing a lot of tree plantations. Again, the tree plantations will be of two types. One will be for timber, so about 60% may be timber and 40% would be horticultural species. So it will be mainly for getting returns out of this land. And if something is growing naturally, we leave it as it is. So not everything has to give us a return.
Apart from carefully selecting his trees, Shantanu's primary focus is ensuring they get enough water. The absence of which, he tells us, is a key reason why plantations fail in the long run.
So a lot of afforestation projects do not have a very strong focus on water. If there is anything they do with irrigation, it will be probably taking tankers of water inside and watering the plants for the first 3-4 years or whatever. And that's why a lot of projects fail and they do not give the sort of returns that you're looking at.
Shantanu has already dug up 2 tanks in addition to a well and 2 bore wells that existed from before. He believes that once a perennial water source is ensured, the rest will organically follow.
So what we really need are something like cup-shaped structures. That's what I'm doing at my land. So for my own water security, what I'm doing is, instead of keeping water on the surface, I'm digging down. I'm going into the rock layer where the water will actually store for a longer period of time. And because it's deeper, it will remain cooler, evaporation losses will be lower.
Even before he has formally started the project, Shantanu tells us he notices the growing of many trees organically. Water levels in the neighboring streams have reportedly risen, and so has the presence of birds, fish, and animals. Confident of the model, Shantanu has invested his own money in the project. He has plans to scale up to 1100 hectares of degraded private land, should he find the necessary funding.
What we are doing is, once we do the water, we are increasing the pace at which the afforestation happens and the biodiversity comes back to this place. You also asked me about how much funding would be needed. So I said about 2 lakhs per acre. So now for 1100 hectares, I would need about 220 CR or so, or maybe more than that. So in conservation, if you want to keep getting money, what you have to do is you have to have business models from where not only do people like CSRs and government can put in money, but a lot of the revenue comes from the project itself.
A high revenue model will also mean economic benefits for the local community. The key reason why Shantanu is confident of local support once he is able to show results. Both in Satara and in Loni Kalbor, the attempt is to find ways to make conservation work for local communities so that they have an incentive to protect forests. The hope is that those like Kadam will not have to move away from his home to make a living. Whether the plantations alone would become financially sustainable in the future remains to be seen. For now, it is clear that with consistent efforts, both trees and wildlife are quick to return.
Thanks for watching Eco India. If you like the story, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Scroll.in on YouTube.